right, we are back in action. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Make More Marbles. Today we have a very special Q&A session for masterminds. We are doing some productivity hacks as well. Before you do any of that, make sure you grab your tickets. We're doing Mastermind to Millions live again, virtually in October. That's the 5th through the 8th. So if you want to learn how to launch, fill, run, and scale your mastermind group, that's the best place to learn how to do that. It's where I learned how to do that. And now I'm a partner on the event. So that's super fun. And we're excited to put it on again. This is our second one doing it together, Jay and I. If you can't make those dates, we can also get you recordings. And we have a really fun deal that we're putting together for a limited time where you can get 2 tickets and the Launch Your Mastermind Bootcamp, which is $2,000 value plus the value of the tickets. It's like $2,800 value for just $697. So if you're interested in that, just reach out to Chris. He can sort that out for you. And if you want to grab your tickets, you can go to mastermindtomillions.live. That's mastermindtomillions.live. Okay, so we'll get right into it. We got some great questions today, some productivity hacks, and we'll get rolling. But first, welcome, Chris. What's going on, brother? It's good to see you.
Working on things, hitting connections, making more connections, networking more.
You were trying to get your butt out to Phoenix, huh? That's the next big
Yeah.
thing.
Doing everything I can to get my butt out to Phoenix, looking for roles, looking for jobs, looking for different things to kind of set myself up. So getting in there quick. So yeah.
First things first. What are the questions? Let's fire away on those.
So the questions that we have from Facebook, we had one question actually that's come up a couple times in the group was how do you deal with, handling various groups, like dynamics of different people, like where you have 1 to 2 members that are very active and the other ones aren't active. How do you deal with overcoming that?
Yeah, so that's usually a pipeline issue. It's the same kind of issue when people are like, how do I make more sales? How do I get more leads? What happens when I get this objection or that objection? It's like, these are all problems of scarcity, not problems of abundance. When you have a lot of members, you're not going to worry too much about each one. And then you can additionally hire people to do the extra work of chasing people down, checking in with them, sending them nice notes, sending them messages, seeing where they're at, and just getting an understanding where they're at. Because they may be able to come back in a little bit. You don't want to be annoying, but you also want to make sure that they're getting what they need, right? And it doesn't necessarily take them to show up every single time in order to get them what they need. They just need to communicate. Like I told my clients, like, we're on a road here. There's going to be bumps and twists and turns on the road. Our job is to keep you out of the ditch, and your job is to raise your hand when you're on the rumble strip, right? So the goal is to be in communication, understand that life happens, and being at every mastermind call would be great, but it's not everybody's priority all the time. Stuff does happen. It's to make sure you understand where they're at and make sure that they're getting the outcomes that they came there for. So that's the most important thing. As far as different personality types, it can be all over the map, right? You'll have people that are super analytical, super emotional, super aggressive, super chill and laid back. Like you'll have all different types of personalities. Understanding your personality type is helpful, and then understanding how you relate to those personality types by kind of Aikidoing their energy is also really valuable. As long as they're not being disruptive to other people. Like I have no problem having it out with a client one-on-one, but if they're going to poison the well, so to speak, they got to go. Right. So that's kind of my line. Right. So that's the other thing to consider. But yeah, I would just be lovingly reaching out or having an assistant or somebody on the team reach out. Every other week, like if somebody misses one, no big deal. But if they miss 2 in a row, like I'd be reaching out and seeing what's what and just making sure that their outcomes are being reached, regardless of whether they're there or not. And then just encouraging them to come back and show up. So that's kind of my answer to that question.
I'd add in, like with my mastermind, what I implemented in a while ago is I've got my support coaches that are on there, which I know with BAM, you've got JJ and myself. And so I get my support coaches to actually keep, like roll call as such, they keep track of who's there and they update my notes while I'm talking and coaching them. But if they miss 3 calls, either one of them or I are reaching out to them, just checking in, just being like, hey, you've missed 3 calls. We want to keep you accountable. We want to just make sure everything's on track.
It's like, hey, you paid for this.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not a thing of going, hey, you missed 3 calls. You're in the naughty house. It's, hey, we just want to make sure everything's still going well for you. And that it's that you just don't need to be on the calls, that it's not you've fallen off the wagon and you're just ashamed to be on the calls because you've fallen off the wagon.
Right.
Because there's no shame there. So that's a really good one. And as far as the dynamics of people, like you said, Brad, sometimes you just get them, but if they're posing in the well, they got to get kicked. I've had some of those, and I've had to kick them, and
Yeah, and
that
that's
was
for the
on me
betterment
for
of the
the
group.
enrollment.
That should be in the agreement from day one. It's like, hey, if you become difficult to deal with, I have the right to kick you out, and there's no refunds. I'm sorry. It's like you gotta understand. You agreed to a very limited service provider, right? As a service provider, you're there to coach them on their business or their health or their relationship, whatever it is, right? You're not there to to go down every rabbit hole. You're not there to be their therapist, to their counselor, or any of that. You're not even qualified to do any of that, right? If they have real psychological issues that have to be dealt with by a professional, then maybe refer them to a professional. Maybe it's not the right fit. So that's another side of it. So again, I'm not trying to be too general or too vague, but that's a great question. And I think you have to kind of just learn how to deal with people individually. And sometimes people just need to feel heard. So maybe you just give them a call and you say, hey, listen, tell me what's going on, and just shut up and listen. And then ask clarifying questions. Is this what I heard you say? Is that accurate? Is there more to it? Do you have something different? Cool. And then as a result of that, you'll build stronger bonds with people. A lot of times, if they're not having the success they want to have, it's usually not the overt reason, it's the covert reason, right? Everybody has secret fears, desires, goals, aspirations, frustrations, things that they never voice, sometimes even to themselves, that if you're willing to just create the space for them to be authentic and vulnerable, you might actually learn about. And then if that gets shifted, right? I'm not necessarily trying to fix it, but if that can shift energetically, or at least call itself out in the open, maybe they can use that energy for something that is productive and will achieve their goals. As we all got stuff as humans. So it's just being there for each other.
It's also putting those boundaries in the very beginning. Like I tell all my clients, all communication with me goes through the group, unless it's something that it's extremely personal. I'm going to be hard on you sometimes, and I'm going to be your best friend sometimes, but right. I want you to understand that.
Well, it's also just not having a million inboxes too. It's impossible to keep up with 40 different ways people want to communicate. You got one way, that's the way you communicate. Otherwise you might miss a message. It's really important, right?
Yeah, exactly. So our next question, before we get into like money side, which everybody's asking around, what should I charge? But we'll get into that here in a minute, is timing wise. So a question that we had was, what's the best time of day or week for most people on average to have the meetings, and how long should the meeting last?
Yeah, so we settled, because we have a diverse audience everywhere from New Zealand, Australia to like Middle East, a lot of Europeans. The bulk of our people lately, because we've been targeting that, is Canada and US. And we picked 1:00 Pacific time on Wednesdays. It's right in the middle of the week. It's right in the middle of the day, right? If you're in New Zealand, Australia, you can get up a little early. If you're in, UK, you can stay up a little late, but we can make everybody accommodate everybody. Whereas the bulk of our audience is in the US and Canada, so it's not unreasonable for them. We could have catered just to US citizens. We chose not to. And you can do whatever you want. It just comes down to where your people is the first thing. Then finally, I would play around the different places on the clock, right? If you had to move the appointment around for a while until you find something that most people can do, the reality is there's never going to be one magical time that fits everybody. It's really not going to happen unless you have like 3 people in your mastermind. You might get lucky, right? But anytime you're herding cats, this is always going to be a thing. So you got to pick a time that's sustainable for you, that meets the most number of people's needs, and then be willing and able to asynchronously help other people who can't make those calls. And I tell this to people all the time. They're like, oh, I don't know about the call times. Like, you don't have to be on the call to get the results. You got the program. You can ask me questions. I'll get back to you in 24 hours anytime. I'll make you a video. I'll do whatever you want to do. It's basically the same as having a hot seat. Or if you have to show up late to the call, we can get to you when you get there, right? It's not the end of the world if you're not exactly to the minute on time, or whatever it is. As long as you're communicating, we can solve the problem. It's a desire thing more than a logistics thing, in my opinion. So that's what I would say to that. There's no magic time, but it's the best time that works for you, work for your people. You might have to test out a few times. I used to do multiple calls a week, which turned out to be too much, and we went to 1 call a week. But that can be valuable as well. Or you can break calls into topics. Let's say you have a team and you're coaching people on different things. Maybe there's a sales call, a marketing call, whatever call, right? A more general call. You could spread those out too and make them different times. That would give people options to do it. But that generally can be overcome if you're committed to the outcome.
Yeah, no, I definitely totally agree with that. I when I was in the US, I was running with them on a Saturday morning at 9 a.m. for people for my group here. And it just didn't work. Like people were just like, oh, I've got things I'm doing on Saturdays, and Saturdays
With
my
their
day.
family, they want to sleep in,
They
whatever.
got
Yeah.
family, they got to sleep in. And we accommodated it. It was 9 a.m. here in New Zealand time. But as soon as I come back here to New Zealand, and I do it in the evenings because all my clients, again, looking at my clients, looking at what works for me, I do it on a Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m.
Yeah.
Because all my clients work 9 to 5s.
That's right.
So there you go. The next question that we have is around money wise. There's a few questions in here around what should I charge? What's the pricing structure? Will they do it then? Pretty much around kind of some of them are coaches and consultants. Some are just retail people that are their clients. What should we be charging?
The answer is always more. Like everybody's charging too little, in my opinion. And the reason is because you can't make more time. And the more that somebody's committed to an outcome financially, the more likely they are to get that outcome. There's always a market demand spectrum, and I always use the story of like you go out to the Serengeti and there's lions out there and they have to hunt for something because they don't eat vegetables. So it's like, what are they going to hunt for? Well, there's an abundance of field mice. But if you're a lion, and even if you eat field mice all day, you'll still starve. And then maybe there's a unicorn out there or an elephant out there, but I haven't seen a unicorn, and it's kind of tough to bag an elephant, even with a whole pack of lions. So, what do? Okay, well, you try to find the middle solution, right? There's a hell of a lot of zebras out there, thousands of zebras as far as the eye can see. You take down a zebra, you can eat pretty well for a while, and it's not that hard to hunt a zebra because there's a lot of them. So that's kind of like the demand curve. Like there's a million people willing to pay nothing or $1 or a small amount of money for something. There's one person willing to pay $1 million for something. And there's probably tens of thousands of people willing to pay tens of thousands or thousands of dollars for something in the middle of that demand curve. So, if they were the zebras, I would chase after them versus the field mice or the unicorns, which you may never see. That's the general thesis on pricing to answer the short question, but to really spread it out, the price is the last consideration. Jay teaches this really great framework. We're actually going to build a challenge. We're talking about it today, what the dates are going to be, probably sometime in September, leading up to the event, which is October 5th through 8th. You can get your tickets, just reach out to Chris or go to mastermindofmillions.live and, get those secured. But in the interim, we're going to do this challenge. It'll be free, where it's basically, or maybe cheap, like a few bucks. We'll go through the 4 things that I believe are important, including pricing, which is promise, structure, positioning, and then pricing. So if you don't have the promise figured out, what's the outcome of the mastermind? It's going to be hard to nail down the pricing. Then the structure that allows you to get the promise, right? To get the outcome. That's the next most important thing. The positioning, how you position that, how you message it, how you brand it, how you do all that is the next thing. And then finally, the pricing is a function of that. And pricing is also a function of compared to what, because people need to have something to compare it to in order to see the value in it. Which is why I never respond to people for requests for pricing before I've had a conversation with them, because I don't even want to make a pitch until they're clear on what the value is. Because I could say it's $1 or $1 million and there's nothing to compare it to. It's just going to be their own stuff about money. And when people say things that sound expensive, I say, compared to what? Compared to not getting the result? Compared to struggling for 10 more years? Compared to what? Compared to a new Ferrari? Like, why is a Ferrari a $250,000 car? Volvo will get you there. Like, why do people want that, right? Why do people want a Porsche? It comes down to identity. It comes down to what you want in life. It comes down to how you want people to perceive you. It comes down to the type of help that you want to get. Yeah, you can hire somebody cheaper, but is it reassuringly expensive enough that you know you'll get the result? And buyers want things to be reassuringly expensive. And I always use this analogy, to talk about. So Chris, like, you could buy a sports car tomorrow, any sports car in the world, no matter the budget. What would it be?
My sports car, if I could buy any, would, at the moment, it's funny. It'd be a Hellcat.
Okay. So that's a Dodge?
Yeah, Dodge Hellcat. Yeah.
Okay. So Dodge Hellcat, what does that cost?
I think at the moment they're going for the one I'd want was about 120K.
120K US. Okay. So you go into the dealership tomorrow, you look at your Hellcat, the person, the rep, the salesperson comes over and says, hey, today only that car is $20,000. What's your first question?
What's wrong with it?
Precisely. So when you misprice your product or service, you think you're doing everybody a favor. You're actually hurting your chances of attracting the proper client, because that's the first question that goes through your head. This is a $120,000 car all day long. Why is it too cheap? And that might have been the best deal that they've ever found, but more than likely there's something wrong with it.
Yeah.
Right. We don't believe it because it's too good to be true. Same thing with Mastermind, same thing with coaching, same thing with anything. Like if somebody told me they charge $100 an hour for coaching, I'm like, well, you're probably not a very good coach. You haven't invested in yourself if you're only charging $100 an hour for coaching. Right. Versus I've invested millions of dollars into myself and I have no problem charging people tens of thousands of dollars to work with me because I'm worth it.
Yeah.
Unequivocally. I've helped a lot of people make a lot of money. And it's a 10x value rule, right? It's like, I know I can help you add 100 grand to your business to the mastermind or more. Why shouldn't I charge 10 grand or more? Right?
Somebody's
That's
just asked a
value.
question kind of related to this, which I think I know the answer to it. But the question was, Ronaldo asked, there's no mastermind in my niche yet, or that I've seen, 3D printing construction.
Oh, cool. I love 3D printing.
Yeah, same. It's awesome. It's been hard to market to the right folks and find a price point people are willing to pay for, knowing that it's still in the early adoption phase.
Yeah, and that's going to be a little harder because it's a little more spread out. It's not really an industry yet. You know, it hasn't quite tipped over from like that deceptive phase where it's demonetizing the value of building homes, and it's about to tip into the disruptive phase, and eventually like the big mainstream push. Like even my best friend Sean, we've been talking about 3D printing for more than 10 years now. I wrote an article in Forbes about it in 2012. So he's big in that space right now. And like, there's people, they're scattered around, but it's going to be a little more grassroots at this point. I would probably, if leads aren't the issue, if you're having just trouble finding people, that's one thing. I would reach out to individual companies that produce these or train people on 3D printing houses. I would ask them, do you have a community? If not, can I create one around your brand? So you could do it as like an add-on and split the money with them. And that naturally feeds people into what they're trying to build, because it's not cheap to go on these printers. I think just the lease one is 6 figures, but to buy one's $1 million. There's that. If it's more of a pricing issue, I would just set a price that you feel is reasonable given the value you're going to get. Like, that could be a $10 million a year business. You're not going to charge $1 million necessarily, but it's certainly going to be more than a couple grand. I would say you want people in the 10 to 20 to 25K range. And it's not just learning about 3D printing. That's anybody could take a training course for that and they'll be $100 to a couple $1,000s. It's going to be more like, how do I build the connections in 3D printing construction generally to raise money, to structure the deals, to create the vehicle, whether it's be a fund or what have you. How do I get the permits? Who do I talk to? Do I want to go to some Native American land? Do I want to go to specific cities, municipalities? What am I trying to accomplish here? How can I get a test case up and running? Maybe you bring in a few people who have done it and done case studies to speak on those topics. You really want to make it a hand in glove fit value-wise. So the price that you want to charge is a no-brainer, right? Where they realize that their career and their success is going to be accelerated by being in this mastermind group. So if you haven't gotten that figured out yet, that needs to be the first piece. Remember, what's the big promise? What is it going to be, right? Could it be how to get a $10 million 3D printing real estate construction company going? Or it could be smaller than that. It could be how to break ground on your first 3D printed structure and all that goes into that, and all the negotiations and deals and permits and everything that happens. That could be like the first step. And then the $10 million range and the $100 million, whatever, right? It could be different tiers. It could be different things. It would be bringing the experts that could do all of that have done all that, all the case studies. They don't have to be yours. They just have to be there, right? Show people what's possible with the membership. Maybe offer those members that are really badass and have great case studies free membership in exchange for they agree to show up to all the calls, or at least a certain number of calls, or give, content on the topic and they get a free membership. So there could be like anchor members that can also see the value. You can make a whole list and roster of these types of people that you'll be bringing in at certain times and kind of, set them up over a year or more. There's just so much you can do with that. Right. And if you're not the person, well, there is no person. You can become the person. You can own that niche, but you're going to have to deal with the fact that it's not an established niche and there's still a lot of opportunity that people don't really realize is opportunity yet. And it may not come from within the real estate industry. You know, if you have successful people doing traditional construction and real estate, they may not want to jump into 3D printing yet, or they might, right? That's just going to come down to that individual and how much they want to disrupt themselves versus continuing to ride that. So there's a lot there. I think there's a lot to unpack and dig into. I, for one, would love to work with you if you're, thinking big and you don't have any reason not to go big. I would say talk to Chris, talk to myself. Let's get you in the BAM program and help you flesh that out even more, because that's a really cool niche. And I happen to have a lot of faith and experience and connections in that realm. And it's just something that I've kind of peripherally thought about a lot.
Ronaldo, I'm gonna send you a message right now. We'll get you on my calendar. Get you into a call with me. Sorry, my dog sees a cat and he wants to go crazy with it. That's pretty much all the questions that we have, Brad. I know you had some stuff that you wanted to teach and go over.
Yeah. This is really simple, gang. I've taught this to my clients a bunch of times, so I can do it in like 5 minutes. This is a question that somebody asked on my birthday post. My birthday was recently, and I put up like things I learned this year kind of post. And specifically, if you go to my Facebook wall, which is facebook.com/Brad Hart, I'll just share my screen real fast. My priorities index card helps me keep focused on outcomes, delegate, not drop anything important. I always do a task right then or calendar it. And that's a rule throughout the companies. Dropping the ball sucks. Always have a system to make sure it doesn't happen. Okay. So basically what I'm talking about here is at the beginning of every day, I write out my priorities for the day on an index card. Why an index card? Well, you can't endlessly write nonsense on here. You could write like 3 to 5 things that need to happen that day. Then next to it, I write, if I can delegate it, I write who I can delegate it to or who I have delegated it to. And so I can follow up later. If I can't do it that day, I put it on the calendar, or I use these Post-it notes. And there's 3 colors here. I bought these extreme Post-it notes that like they use on construction sites and you can re-stick, which I like because otherwise the glue fades pretty quick. So these 3 colors are green, yellow, orange. Green is stuff that I have to do on my own that I can't get any leverage on whatsoever. Yellow is stuff that I need help to do, but I'm going to be involved in. And then orange is stuff I can delegate completely, or I'll just do one meeting and then it's off my plate. And then as these things pile up for the stuff that I do later or that's in project, I'm always kind of keeping an eye on how many of them are green versus yellow versus orange. And if there's too many that are green, I look through them and I try to find ways to offload them again, right? Is like, how can I get more leverage on this? Or how can I do the thing that would make these irrelevant? Right. So the index card is the daily piece. The calendar keeps everything organized in timelines and blocks it out. I either do something right away, or if I can't do it right away, I calendar it, but I try not to ever drop the ball. I always take some sort of action on it right then and there, write it down, get it out of my head, because you'll forget very easily or get distracted. And then finally, these Post-it notes really help you to keep track of kind of longer term projects and tasks relating to those projects. So that's my little productivity system. I've tried a lot of other things, online, digital. I keep coming back to physical reminders because it's out of sight, out of mind. I like to have things in my physical space that remind me. So that's my little productivity system.
Yeah. So no, I've seen you use it. It does work really well. And yeah, like you said, out of mind. It's out of sight, and I've tried the reminder thing on my phone. I've done all that. Yeah, the Post-it notes.
Not the same. And then I can rip this up at the end of the day and be like, oh, I did it.
Yeah, I did it. Or you can burn it, whatever you want to do, whatever's your fancy.
Yeah. But it just keeps things clean and easy, and I don't really drop balls too often. I'm pretty good at that.
That's a pretty good hack. And
30 minutes, perfect. If you want to head on over to our school group, learn more about Mastermind of Millions, we've got some great extra bonus content over there. That's at marbles.link/M2M group. That's marbles.link/M, the number 2M, like Mastermind of Millions group, M2M group. And we'll see you over there. Chris is an admin. He can let you in, answer any questions, and we can get you set up. Again, we've got 3 ticket deals going on right now. You have GA for $397, VIP, which includes recordings, and the day before festivities for $597, or you can get 2 GA tickets with the Launch Your Mastermind Bootcamp, a $2,000 value for $697 right now. And that's through Chris. That's a little fun deal we're doing. In addition to that, I'll let you know on the challenge. And as always, thank you for being a part of the community. Let's make more marbles and let's help some people do the things and make the world a better place. Thank you, Chris, as always. I'll see you all soon.
Thank you, Brad.